Hey everybody, I'm John, and today we're doing a review of the Taconic Distillery Double Barrel Maple Bourbon. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, and thank you so much for joining me today here on Blind Whiskey Reviews. I'm very excited to bring you this review, which I say quite a bit, but I'm very excited to bring you this review because this one's a little bit unique. I love maple syrup, so I'm really curious to see how this whiskey does. I've tasted a couple other maple whiskeys in the past, and they really just didn't bring the maple, so I'm really hoping that this whiskey brings the maple. So this whiskey is the Taconic Distillery Double Barrel Maple Bourbon. It's a straight bourbon whiskey barreled with New York maple syrup. It's bottled at a 57.5% alcohol by volume, 115 proof. And by reading the bottle and the neck tag, it sounds like they're taking the whiskey and barreling it with maple syrup. So I don't know if it's occupying a barrel that maple syrup occupied before, or if they're just legitimately just pouring maple syrup into this thing. Hopefully it's the latter, because hopefully that'll give it more maple syrup flavor. This is an annual release from them, so I think they've done this continuously. This is release number 5. They do this annually once a year. And I believe Taconic Distillery is still sourcing their bourbon. So I don't know that they're actually making their own distillate yet. But anyways, I'm excited to get in this one. Like I said, love maple syrup. I love bourbon. The two sound like they would go great together. So let's see how this thing does. So let's crack this bottle open and find out. And definitely let me know if you guys have had the chance to try this whiskey before. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Let's see what our pop does. Good pop, synthetic cork. I'm not smelling too much maple just yet, but I won't let that get me down. And if you guys haven't checked it out already, I have reviewed one of their whiskeys before. It was their cognac cask finished bourbon, and it actually was pretty darn good. So if you haven't checked that out, I will link it up here and down in the description below. Go check out that review. It's actually a pretty good bourbon. You can definitely tell that their bourbon isn't really old that they're sourcing, but they do a really good job of blending in other flavors, so that way that young character isn't off-putting. They, like with the cognac cask specifically, it really blended well with those cognac flavors that they blended in with it. So it was good stuff. I'm really intrigued to get into this. So far, not getting a ton of maple. I mean, I'm getting some like younger whiskey notes, a slight grassiness, some light fruits. I really wanted that maple to pop off on this thing, and so far we're not there yet, but let's hopefully see it when we get across the palate here. Yeah, so far just smelling like a little bit younger whiskey. There's a slight sweetness there, but it really isn't distinctly coming from like maple or having any like strong maple character. But let's taste it. Cheers. All right. This tastes nothing like it smelled like so far. I don't want to get into too many flavor notes. It is definitely sweet. I don't know that it's like in your face maple. There's definitely a maple flavor there. It's not in your face, but you can just totally taste the sweetness from that maple. It's in there. You can also still kind of feel those younger whiskey notes. They're not off-putting. They're kind of necessary at this point because this whiskey has this pop of really strong sweetness, and I think those younger whiskey notes actually go really well with that sweetness because they kind of even it out a bit. Well, let's get another taste. Yeah, more of the same. So there's definitely some heat here. You can feel that 115 proof. It's warming on the tongue. It's a little bitey, not bad. It's not off-putting necessarily. You definitely get those younger whiskey notes. You definitely get that slightly grassy character, the kind of like green apple. But then there's just this explosion of sweetness. And they definitely have that maple character, brown sugar. But like I said, it kind of nicely balances with the young notes. So they made a really good choice here of what they blended. And they did the same thing with the cognac. They made some really good choices on the blend because they balance out. Like, you can have young whiskey, but you got to do something to it. You can't just drink young whiskey. It's not going to work. You got to balance some complexity and some flavor in there. And they've done that here with this maple syrup. Let's give one more taste. Now, based on the description, I wish there was just more actual like maple flavor here, but again, it's done pretty well, so I'm not mad at it. But we need to give this a little bit of time to open up. Hopefully some more actual maple will pop out of this whiskey and not just that maple sweetness popping out of it. So we're going to give it 20 to 30 minutes, let it open up a little bit, let us get an indication of what's going to happen to this whiskey as it sits in the bottle with a little bit of air and ages. So we're going to see what happens. We'll be right back with those notes in a minute. All right, so the whiskey's been in the glass for right about 20 minutes. So let's see how it's doing. The nose feels fairly similar, not much change there. Very similar characters on the palate. Like I said, you got these young green apple, grassy notes that in the mid palate just explode with this sweetness, which I got to assume is from the maple. There's still not a ton of maple flavor though. It feels like maple sweetness, a little bit of maple flavor, but not a ton of maple flavor. And to be honest, if it was a ton of maple flavor, it'd probably be like cloyingly sweet and you wouldn't really want to drink it. So probably better that it isn't. I feel like on this whiskey that I would like, I mean, this whiskey feels like it's maybe in the like 2-year-old range, maybe 3, but it doesn't feel very old. And I would like to see them do something like this with a whiskey that's maybe a little bit older, maybe a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old. At some point, you're gonna have to back off the maple syrup because at some point, as the whiskey sits in the barrel, it sweetens from the oak and you don't necessarily want to add that much sweetness back to it. But I really would like to see this with a little bit older whiskey. Just back off those grassy notes a touch and bring in more of the bourbon characters to blend with that maple. I think that would be absolutely fantastic. This whiskey is good, but it's not as complex as I would like to see. And like I said, I'd really like to taste the maple more, not just feel the sweetness more. So let's get one more taste here and I'm going to give you my final thoughts on this whiskey. Yeah, I mean, they did a good job. I mean, they do good. If you're going to have to source young whiskey because you want to keep your whiskey to a certain price point or whatever the reason may be, they have done, in my experience with a couple of whiskeys of theirs that I've tried, they've done a great job of picking things to blend and blending them appropriately with that young whiskey because they're complementing it. They're not trying to cover it, but they're adding things into it that will go well with those young whiskey characters. They did that with the cognac. They did that here with the maple bourbon. All right, so this whiskey goes for about $50 to $55. I've seen it range in price, which, I mean, you're getting on the steep side when you get up to that price. It is a 115 proof whiskey, which is nice, but when you're getting up into the range of whiskeys that are like Elijah Craig barrel proof at $60, which is, you know, a 12-year high proof, you know, barrel proof whiskey. I don't know if this is barrel proof. It's probably close, but anyways, when you're getting up there, the price is bordering on a little bit expensive. It is a finished whiskey, which does add a little bit of value, but I'm not mad at it for, you know, 45, 50 bucks, but if you're getting up towards 60, I think we're getting a little bit expensive. But anyways, I think it's a reasonably good whiskey. If I have to give it a score, I'm going to say, like I said, it's not knocking my socks off. It's not overly complex. It tastes good. It's well blended, and I'm gonna say it's an 80. It's like an 82, 83. I'm gonna give it. We usually give the benefit of the doubt in these reviews, so I'm going to give it an 83. I'm really excited to see what it does down the line. Maybe opening up a little bit with some airtime will give it a little bit more of that maple character that I really want to see out of this. But anyways, if you have the opportunity to try it, let me know in the comments down below. As always, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at blind_reviews. You can also follow me on Instagram at Mission Bottle Kill, where I'm posting all kinds of pictures of people killing great bottles of whiskey. If you want me to post your pic, just tag at Mission Bottle Kill in the post. You can also send me an email at blindwhisky_reviews, that's whiskey with an E, at gmail.com. And until next time, cheers.